everyone. Today we will continue with it, Chapter 2, the Part 2 Dietary Guideline. The Dietary Guideline is a set of recommended eating and physical activity practices designed for healthy people. Its purpose is to incorporate all the latest scientific knowledge to promote health, ensure adequate nutritional status, and reduce the risk of the major chronic diseases. These guidelines are jointly published by the United States Department of Health and Human Services, the abbreviation USDHHS, and the USDA. They are revised about every 5 years to reflect the newest scientific evidence. The most version, the 2020 to 2025's guidelines, is the first edition to include recommendation for all stages of all the life cycle, from infancy to older adults. These guidelines are a big deal. They form the basis of all federal nutrition policy and programs. So let's look at how these guidelines are developed and applied. The development process is rigorous. First, the government appoints dietary guidelines advisory committee, which is made up of nationally recognized medical and nutrition experts. This committee reviews all the current scientific evidence and prepares a scientific reports that contains their recommendations. This report is made available for the public to read and comment on. Finally, the USDHHS and USDA take that scientific report and use it to write the final dietary guidelines. The core principle of the current guidelines is that a healthy eating pattern includes food from all five food groups and oils, but limit saturated fats, limit trans fat, limit added sugar, limit sodium. The table here gives a practical example of how to apply this. Just example here. Instead of white bread, consider whole wheat bread. Instead of sugary cereal, have oatmeal with berries. Instead of a breaded and fried meat, choose a broiled roasted meat. So these guidelines are the basis of the consumer facing tools which have evolved over the years. Let's look at the history of the food guides. We will start in 1943 because the USDA has been issuing food guides for over 100 years. In 1943, we had the first guide based on the RDAs with 7 food groups. This was simplified in 1950s to just 4 food groups. Many of you will remember the food guides pyramid. Introduced as mentioned before 1992, this was a big step as it was the first guide to rank the food groups by emphasis, with the grains at the basis or as the foundation. In 2005, Food Guide Pyramids was replaced by My Pyramid, which was an online interactive food guidance system. The vertical color stripes were meant to represent different food groups. For example, orange is grain, green vegetables, red is fruits, oil yellow color. For example, also blue milk and milk products. Yes. Okay. But my pyramid was seen as confusing, which led it to its replacement in 2011 by the system we use today called My Plate. So My Plate from 2011 at present, the USDA replaced My Pyramid with My Plate. It is an interactive, which current interactive dietary and menu planning guide. And you can catch it by the website www.myplate.gov. So this is the My Plate plan. It's a very simple visual guide that focuses on 5 groups. The first group, fruits. The second, vegetable, protein, grains, and dairy. The key messages are built right into the visual. As you can see in this figure, make half of your plate from fruits and vegetables. Focus on whole grain. Vary your veggies. Make half of your grains as whole grain. Make low fat or fat-free dairy. Vary your protein routine also, and choose food with less added sugar. So choose food and beverages with less added sugar, with less saturated fats, with less sodium. On the key concept My Plate emphasizes is limiting empty calories. So what are empty calories? The definitions is energy supplied by solid fats and added sugar. Alcohol containing beverages are also a source of empty calories. Where do Americans get most of their empty calories? The USDA has identified the top sources: cakes, cookies, pastries, donut, from both added sugar and solid fats, sugar sweetened drinks like soda, energy drinks, sport drinks, cheese, pizza, ice cream, and fatty meal like sausage, hot dogs, and trips from solid fats. In a healthy eating patterns, After you consume all nutrient-dense food you need from the food groups, there may be a small number of discretionary calories left over. For 2000 kilocalorie plan, this is only about 240 kilocalorie. You can spend these on empty calorie food or preferably on more nutrient dense choices. A great feature on the MyPlate website is its ability to individualize a plan for you. So the MyPlate website can create personalized daily food plan. You go to the MyPlate plan feature, enter your information, and it will provide an estimate of your daily energy need and how much you should eat from each food group. This personalization is based on your age, in your sex, in your height, in your weight, in your physical activity level also. So, in this table, some of those recommendations, for example, an average healthy 20 years old female might need 1600 to 2400 kilocalorie per day, while a male on the same age might need 2600 to 3200 kilocalorie. You can see their recommendation intake for fruits, vegetables, grain, protein, and dairy differ as well. So these the food groups, and here the calories of the female, compared with male, how many serving for fruits. For example, here 1.5 to 2 cups of fruits for the female, compared with 2 to 2.5 cups for the male, and etc. So, what about mixed dishes? Things like pizza, like sandwiches, like uh, uh, casseroles, combine food from multiple groups. The process is simple. First, you determine the ingredient, for example, for pizza. That's crust, tomato sauce, and cheese. Second, you classify each ingredient into its food group. The crust is grain, the tomato sauce is vegetable, and the cheese is dairy. Third, you estimate the amount of each. A sliced pizza might provide fourth cup of vegetables, 2 ounces or 60 grams of grains, and fourth cup of dairy. Instead of measuring cups, you can use familiar objects or you hand to judge amount. Look at this figure. Since most of us don't carry measuring cups, we can use familiar objects, including our hands, to estimate portion size. As in this figure show, your palm about 3 ounces or 90 grams of cooked meat. Your fist is about 1 cup, and the tip of the thumb is about 1 tablespoon. Tip of the thumbs is about 1 tablespoon. So, with all these great tools, are the people actually following the recommendations? According to the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, sustainable diets are defined as those with low environmental impacts, thus contributing to food and nutrition security and to healthy life for present and future generation. Sustainable and healthy diet has several key characteristics. It's diverse and balanced. It's based around minimally processed foods, especially whole grain, legumes, fruits, vegetables. It's limit meat intake. It includes moderate amount of dairy or fortified alternatives. It limits foods high in certain fats, added sugar, and salt. And it focuses on water as the preferred beverages. This is about keeping both your own health and a plant's health in mind when planning meals. My Plate is a great tool for the general public, but some health conditions require more specific tools. Let's look at one for diabetes. Many chronic diseases require special diets. Diabetes, for example, is easier to control when the diet has consistent macronutrient composition from day to day. A classic tool for this choose your foods tool. It's a system for estimating energy, protein, carbohydrate, and fat content on food. It's also useful for anyone trying to manage their weight. It works on exchange list. It categorized food into three broad groups: carbohydrates, meat and meat substitutes, and fats. So three. Within each list, the foods are exchangeable. The United States is growing more diverse, like other developed countries. Evidences suggest that health outcomes are at stake when cultural customs are not honored by healthy professionals. Therefore, we must focus on demonstrating cultural competence and humility. So, what is culture? It's the knowledge and values shared by a group. We can think of its using as the iceberg model. The iceberg model, as you see in this figure: surface culture and deep culture. Surface culture is what you see, observable actions, like language, like dress, what we eat, and holidays. But deep culture is what you don't see: the perceptions, the attitude, beliefs, and values that drive the surface behaviors. The role of culture in nutrition. We must practice with cultural competence. That means the capacity to work effectively in a cross-cultural situation, and cultural humility, the ongoing process of self-reflection and being aware of our own biases. The term cultural compatibility combines these two ideas. To practice this, we can use a helpful mnemonic ASKAD. ASKAD. So the five construct ASKED of cultural competence can be remembered using the mnemonic ASKED. A is awareness, S is skill, K is knowledge, E is encounters, and D is desire. So, awareness, this is about you. It's being aware of your own cultural identities and the potential biases you may have. Skill, this is the how to, it's knowing how to conduct a medical history or a nutrition focused physical assessment in a culturally sensitive manner. K, knowledge, this is about understanding culturally specific disease prevalence rate and critically the role of social determinants of health and disease risk. Encounters, this is about doing. It's spending time with people from cultures different from your own and being committed to suspending judgment in those interactions. This is why it's engaging in this process, because you truly care about recognizing and discussing cultural differences, not just because you have to. Next slide, I will show you table provide a summary of how to view these constructs through the lens of humility. So this table gives us concrete example. Culture awareness, the first column, cultural skill, cultural knowledge, cultural encounters, the cultural desire. These A, S, K, E, and D. So, cultural awareness involves being sensitive to the similarities and differences between your culture and others. Culture skill means conducting a food history in culturally sensitive manner. Cultural knowledge means understanding why disease risk might be different, including social determinants. Cultural desire means you do all this because you genuinely care about providing the best, most respectful care. This image that I will show you next slide celebrate the snapshot of the global influence on food choices. Look at this. Food choices are heavily influenced by culture in diverse countries like in United States, like in Arab countries, like in Eastern countries from around the globe, around worldwide. From India curry to traditional Ethiopian foods to couscous to mansaf to kabsa to noodles to roasted insects, all of these are part of the human diet. When we are meal planning with the client, We must practice cultural competence and humility, remembering that their cultural food can and should be the basis of the healthy diet. Now, let's move to our major topic: how to understand the information on the food and dietary supplements label. Food and dietary supplements label. The information on food labels is one of the most directly ways consumers can get information. It helps them determine ingredient and compare the energy and the nutrient contents of packaged foods. In the United States, the FDA, Food and Drugs Administration, and in most of the other countries, consumer protection departments regulates and monitors the information that can be placed on food labels. By law, nearly all packaged food must have a label that provide the product's name, the manufacturer name, and address, the amount of a product in the package, and if there more than one ingredient, list of ingredient in decreasing order by weight. This means the first ingredient in the list is the one that weighs the most. Additionally, many foods like fresh fruits, vegetables, and fish must declare their country of origin. To compare products, the FDA developed a special set of standards just for labels. These are the daily value or DVS. To help consumers evaluate nutritional content, the FDA developed the daily value or DVS as mentioned before. These are a more simplified and practical set of nutrients standard specifically for labeling purposes. They are not the same as the RDAs. The DV you see on the most labels are based on the standard 2000 kilocalorie per day diet. Uh, how to use them? Your goal is to obtain at least 100% of the DV for good things like fiber, like vitamin, like minerals. So I need to, to intake 100% of these nutrients. So your goal is to consume less than 100% of the DV for nutrients you want to limit, such as total fats, such as saturated fats, such as added sugar, such as high sodium content. A very useful guide is the 5-20 rule of thumbs. What's mean? If a food provide 5% DV or less, a nutrient, it is low source of that nutrient. If it provide 20% DV or more, it is high source of that nutrient. These DV are displayed on the new nutrition fact label. So the FDA requires food manufacturers to use this specific format, the nutrition fact panel, to display the energy and the nutrient content of their products. A key part of this panel is the serving size. This is listed in both household unit like 2/3 cup and the grams like 55 grams. To make comparison easier, the FDA requires that serving size must be consistent among similar foods. For example, all brands of ice cream must now use 2/3 cup serving size. This figure shows the new updated label. You will notice the calories are much larger, bolder font, and the serving size here have been updated to reflect what people actually eat. So let's look more closely at what is required on this new panel. The FDA requires manufacturers to provide information on the following. Number one, total fat, saturated fats, and trans fat. Also, cholesterol and sodium, total carbohydrate and dietary fibers. And new to this label, total sugar, with a separate line for included added sugar. This is a major change, allowing consumers to distinguish natural sugar like in milk from sugars added during processing, like high fructose corn syrup, and also protein. And finally, the micronutrient vitamin D, potassium, calcium, and iron. So, what gone or removed calories from fats is no longer required, and vitamin A and C are no longer required, as deficiencies are rare. So they were replaced with vitamin D and potassium, which are public health concerns because many of people don't get enough of them. It's important to note that some foods like fresh fruits and vegetables, fish, and meat are not required to have these labels. Beyond the numbers, labels can also make specific claims. Let's look at the three types of claims. The first type is health claim. The FDA permits these claims, but they are highly regulated. A healthy claim describes a relationship between food or ingredient and reduced risk of disease. They cannot claim to diagnosis, to care, to mitigation, to or treatment disease. So label cannot say eating this cereal prevent heart disease, but it can say diet low in saturated fats and cholesterol may reduce the risk of heart disease. So see the specific wording. Furthermore, a food cannot make healthy claim if it's high in bad nutrient. A great example is whole milk. It's high in calcium, but it's also high in saturated fats, over 4 grams per serving. Therefore, the label on whole milk cannot make a healthy claim about calcium and osteoporosis. The second type of a claim is structure functions claim, which is much more common. Structure function claim describes the role of a nutrient or dietary supplements, plays in maintaining a normal structure like bone or normal body function like digestion. These claims do not require FDA approval, but they cannot mention the disease. An allowed example: calcium builds strong bones. Another allowed example: fiber maintains bowel regularity. A not allowed example would be promotes low blood pressure, because that implies treating the disease of high blood pressure. The third type, a nutrient content claim. This is a claim about the level of a nutrient in a product. It uses terms like free, high, low, reduced, or more. These terms are all strictly defined by the FDA. So let's look at what those definitions actually mean. In this table shows some of the legal definitions for these claims. So reduced sugar means the food at least 25% less sugar than the reference food or regular version. Low fat means that food contains 3 grams or less fat per serving. High fiber also means it contains 5 grams or more of fiber per serving. Now, I want to point out a very important one: the definition free. A food can be labeled free or fat free if it provides less than 0.5 gram of that nutrient per serving. This is not always zero. It means that if you eat several servings of fat-free products, you may still be consuming some fat. Dietary supplements labels. Every dietary supplements labeled uh, maybe contain must contain properly labeled. The label must include the term dietary supplement or similar term like herbal supplement. It must have list of ingredient, manufacturer's address, and suggested dosage. And similar to food, it must have supplement facts. Supplement facts panel. This panel shows the serving size, the amount per serving, and the percentage DV, daily value, if a daily value has been established for that ingredient. The FDA is very clear that supplements are not intended to treat, to diagnose, to care, or alleviate the effect of diseases. However, they are allowed to use structure function claims. For example, iron supplement can say iron is necessary for healthy red blood cells formation. But when supplement makes a claim, it almost always has to be accompanied by specific disclaimers. So, if a dietary supplement labeled makes structure function claims that the FDA has not evaluated, it must include this exact disclaimer, which you have probably all seen before. This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, to treat, to care, or prevent any disease. This is a critical legal distinction. Manufacturers are responsible for ensuring their claims are accurate, but they do not need to provide evidence or get approval from the FDA before the product goes to market. They just have to notify the FDA about the claims they are making. So, our final topic for today is a labeling term that has its own complete set of rules, the organic. So, organic food. I think everybody here buy organic food. The term organic can be confusing. Technically, in chemistry, organic substance is anything with carbon bound into hydrogen. So all foods are organic. But when we see it on label, organic refers to a specific methods of food production. Organic produces food are those grown or produced without use of antibiotic, without using hormones, synthetic fertilizer and pesticides not used, without use genetic improvement called GMOs, without ionizing radiation used. So organic foods have become very popular. In 2022, they accounted for $61.7 billion in sales, making up 6% of the total food sales in the United States. The big question, are they more nutritious? Again, the question, are organic food more nutritious? The science is mixed. Some research suggests organic crops may have higher concentration of certain antioxidants, while conventional crops may have higher protein. It's now increasingly accepted that there are some nutritionally relevant differences, but the ultimate impact on human health is still uncertain. What we do know is that organic foods have been shown to contain fewer pesticide residues and fewer antibiotic resistant bacteria. In the next slide, there is a table gives a very clear comparison of the two farming systems. In this table, provide a great head to head comparison. Organic versus conventional. In organic farming, synthetic fertilizer are not allowed. In conventional, there are limited restrictions. Organic farming forbids the use of conventional pesticides and encourages natural pest management. Conventional farming, on the other hand, can use any governmental approved pesticides. A major one for consumers is GMO, genetically modified organisms, are not allowed in organic production, but are permitted in conventional. And for livestock, organic rules forbid the use of growth hormones and antibiotic in production, which are permitted in conventional farming. This leads to different categories of organic labels you will see in the stores. So, to protect consumers, the USDA have very strict rules for the organic food industry. A product cannot be labeled organic unless if it meets these national standards. If you see the official USDA organic symbol show here, you know the products meet the standard. But there are three different categories: 100% organic, organic, or made with organic ingredients. 100% organics, just what it sounds like. 100% of the ingredient are organic. It can use the seal, but organic. This is the most common one. It means the product contains at least 95% organic ingredient. It can also use the seal. While made with organic ingredient, this means the product is 70 to 95% organic. It cannot use the official USDA seal on the front, but can list the organic ingredient. Thank you. This is the end of this chapter, chapter 2. See you in the next chapter, chapter 3, in the principle of the nutrition course. Goodbye.